If I tell you my passion is that people should know how to heal. It just about breaks my heart when I see people and they don't actually have a clue how much they could heal. But I don't get someone doing 5 negative symptoms in the DSM and that's the person. That's bullshit. All it does is terrify people. They say to them, you've got a permanent genetic mental illness, now heal. I grew up in what a lot of people would call very poor circumstances. And I grew up in domestic violence. And we didn't call it domestic violence, but we were bloody terrified of our father, and the concept of calling the police was a long way away because he was a big 6'4" heavyweight boxing boxer. Like he was the Air Force champion, and he was an extraordinarily unskilled human being when it came to knowing our rights. And he died not healing. And it was one of the most saddest things I ever saw. Dorothy Rowe is the same as the meditation. She goes through the mind and gets you to think it out until you understand it so much that it goes somewhere you can handle it. Vipassana makes you sit in your body, and as the memories come up, you get equilibrium. And somehow it's kind of the same thing. It's that you get an evenness, that you stay in the present moment and you face the world. And not only do you face it, you like to face it. You know, you're back. When you come from a family where they don't know how to do stuff, you got to go looking. You got to go looking for the good aunties, for the person, you know, the good Samaritan who is the person who knows that you're getting a belting when you go home. So they bring you in and they give you a drink. I look for those people, and I hope I am that person now. But when I met Dorothy, I was actually quite scared she wasn't going to be who she said she was.
Do you want me to say anything about domestic violence? A man who feels adequate, who has no great serious doubts about his own adequacy and ability, doesn't have to resort to domestic violence. It's the inadequate man, the man who feels he's inferior, and he needs to establish his superiority by being violent to a person who can't return that violence. People can always change their behaviour if they want to. There are lots of things in life about which we have no choice, but we do have a choice about how we behave. We're not forced to behave in one way or another. Each time we act in a particular way, we've made a choice to act in that way. Events that we describe as being traumatic are events that we find hard to talk about because there's so much emotion in it. You feel so angry and frightened, and you're unable to talk about these matters in an orderly, sensible sort of way. But I think one of the things we now understand that we didn't understand 10 or 15 years ago was that when we suffer a trauma, it's best to be able to talk about that trauma. And our task when we suffer a trauma is to find somebody who knows how to listen. Listening doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to come up with the solution to the person's problem. often you can help the person find their own solution by listening carefully and asking good questions. The best question I discovered was when you hear somebody say something that sounds like it's something very important to them, I'd find that by asking that question, why is that important to you? I didn't have to ask any more questions. All I had to do was sit back and listen.
People say to me, it's like she knows me. It's like she's in the same, like she's inside my head. It's like getting the first drink of water. It's like somebody gets the world. This is almost the end of the year. At the end of every year, I turn into a 5-year-old with whiteboards everywhere. I write down what I love, I write down what I didn't love, I write down what I tried, I write down what I didn't try, and I think. And one of the things that I have realised is that, especially in the contemporary world of what's going on in domestic violence, that I know domestic violence backwards. I understand it and I understand how to heal. But I also understand now how much the courts don't get it, how terrifying it is for people to be alone, and I believe that one of the things that we really need is asylums in the original sense of the word. So we need to go back to keeping people safe, and I'm driven now to try and change sexuality in our culture. And I feel like that also I need to go and take Vipassana into the jails. So men who have been shamed and beaten and then take it out on the women who are smaller than them and are just absolutely so numb within inside of themselves that they don't get any pleasure unless it's angry pleasure of taking over somebody else's body. I get that. And I think it's a really important thing that would be, I think, the most important contribution I could give to the world, my little world, to do the best I could, because this is the stuff I get. Everybody needs to know how to fight out the dark night of the soul. That's the information that helps you grow big and strong and face the world the way it is.